Welcome to part two, everybody. Some technical difficulties. I don't know what happened with my handy dandy little camera, but something happened and it stopped recording. And luckily it did record, so I didn't have to record it again. But a couple minutes have passed, and now I'm back and make sure. Just good. Yeah, it's still recording, so that's a good thing. Okay, so now we're back at it. Only a couple minutes have passed since the last time, but I'm still working on this Tardis picture frame. Just put this down, and now what we're going to do is we have like this nice little, kind of like this orange. It's almost harvest time on these leaves, or the branches, and all sorts of stuff going on here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm really going to start slapping on the paint. So we have our base locations. I'm just going to go through them. Yeah, just let that paint have its fun. You'll notice that a lot of my paints I just dip right in. As I said in the last one, don't worry about keeping your paint separated. Let it mix. You'll get some really happy accent colors from it. So let it happen. And you'll notice, I wasn't quite doing this as a do it yourself, but if you are, more power to you. But you'll notice that as you slap this paint on, it gets all globular and just kind of sticks to the canvas. As I mentioned last time around, just let it glob up and it'll be a cool other effect. So yeah, I don't keep my paint separated. I let them mix a lot. Kind of feel happy about some of the colors that come out of it. One of the things you will kind of notice that I am doing with this color is that I'm putting some of the color next to the orange, and the red next to the yellow to create a little bit of contrast. When you do this by placing these colors next to each other, what ends up happening is that it makes the dark color or light colors stand out a little bit more. So it's what we call kind of creating contrast. And so I'm just going kind of close to the Tardis. I'm going to add some more paint on top of it later. And got a huge glob of yellow. Now I kind of turned, there was a little bit of orange in there earlier, and I want to leave a little bit orange, but I also want to add a little bit of blue to this to make some green coming through. So some of these are going to be a little greenish. So I got a little bit of blue, add a little bit more yellow, and there we go, we got a little bit of green. I want to add maybe a little bit of green throughout here, so I'm just going to add a little bit of blue and some brush strokes going in the same direction. So another thing about creating artwork is that a lot of times, people think it needs to be very realistic, or the detail. It's all about the detail, and detail's cool. Don't get me wrong, I started my quote-unquote art career by putting hundreds of hours of dots on sheets of paper in pointillism, and a lot of people love the way those turned out. I love the way they turned out too, but as you can see, I'm doing this one in like 15 minutes, and yeah, it's a little bit better on the return on investment to be able to crank out things a little bit quicker, and you're not spending as much time just putting thousands of dots on a sheet of paper. So getting back on track. So what that was all about is talking about detail. You don't actually have to make all the details. If you do just enough detail, you could kind of fudge everything else. A lot of times when I teach painting classes, I'll teach people how to do skylines and such. And here we're in Chicago, and we got Willis Towers and the John Hancock Building and Trump Towers. And once you kind of, like, if you're doing the skyline, once you get those buildings done, the rest of them, nobody knows what they're called. Nobody really knows. So the point of that is you do the recognizable objects, and then everything else really doesn't matter. So in this, what I'm doing is I added a little bit of green here, a little bit of green here, got some orange and red throughout here. I got a little bit of blue, I got the Tardis, and everything else doesn't matter. So I'm really just trying to put globs of colors that contrast. You notice I'll have the green over here, and then I separate that green with some red here, and then I separate the red from this red with a little green here. So I've created this contrast between them. But then I add this blue up here. This blue also balances the blue that I have down here. And when I add some white on top of here on the Tardis for the lettering and the little, timey-wimey thing up at the top, it'll balance out. So yeah, but for right now I'm also going to throw a little bit of yellow up on top here too to help it balance. And then we'll add some more. And you'll see that this is going pretty quick. If you are an artist or if you're thinking about artwork, I like to tell people it's like a lot of people say that it requires talent, but it also requires skill. Go to these high power athletes and say, oh, you were born a great athlete. No, I am sure that if you talk to all those Olympic medalists, and they'll all tell you that they have worked their butts off practicing all the time and making sacrifices to be able to do it. And art is kind of the same way. If you go through and you just put hundreds and thousands of hours into it, you can improve your skill. Not telling you have to put hundreds of thousands, even though I just said you did, but you'd be amazed at how much you can learn just by putting a little bit of concentrated effort and treating it more like a learned skill and not necessarily a quote-unquote talent that only people born with it can do. So if you're really determined to be an artist and to get better at art, do not let that whole quote-unquote talent thing get in the way of your aspirations. Okay, so there we go. As you can see, I'm adding some of this white on top of, using it to help blend this turbulence together. Remember, we have this turbulence coming from down here, and it comes up and around. You can almost kind of think of this, as I said, like a little eye of the hurricane up here, turbulence. And you can see it kind of blended in some of that yellow on top of this blue, turned a little greenish, but that's fine. Looks pretty cool. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm not going to bore you with doing the sides, but I'll do the sides a little bit, at least just so you can see. So here I am. I'm adding some details to the sides, not as much as I did on the front of it, because people aren't going to look as much at the sides as the front, but you still want to do the sides. I'm also going around the sides of the Tardis, adding a little bit of yellow, but I'm going back over my brush strokes to make sure that they fit the turbulent flow that I had going on there. And something I just realized, so I'm looking at this Tardis, you can see it's got like this yellow border around it. If you really look at it, it looks like it doesn't quite fit with everything else, because it's got all these cool brush strokes and it's all going everywhere, but here it just kind of stops. So what I'm going to do is now that I added that yellow border, I'm going to go through and just add some brush strokes here, just so it blends in with its surroundings. And then down here, I'll go and add a little bit of red too down here, going in the same direction. And when I do the sides, the brush strokes kind of continue the direction. So I'm adding some brush strokes on the sides so they kind of go in the same direction. So I'm almost done here. Look at this. Isn't it amazing? So I added the green there. Now let's just go and add. I'm going to take that brush. Once again, I've been using the same brush the whole time. A lot of people ask, oh, what brush do you use for that? I don't know. I just pick up a brush and use it. I'm sure that if I went to art school that there was very specific brushes that you can and can't use for paint and and I just pick up a brush and use it in my thing. So there we go. I'm using a little bit of forced perspective here. That's the little window box on the side of the Tardis. Right up here, I'm going to go and Can't really read it, but I added that please call box. That's what that says, please call box. So it's right up at the top. It's so far away and it's impressionistic that you can't read it. And it really doesn't matter what it says because anybody who recognizes this as a TARDIS knows what that says. And then right up on top, I'm going to go and put that mysterious timey-wimey thing up there. And then I'm going to go and just add a little bit more detail to the TARDIS by, you notice at the top of it,